Happiness cost me $250,000, and it was worth every penny. My late husband was in a car accident his senior year in 1986 and got a settlement of $30K he could access at 18. He was a gearhead and wanted to buy a Corvette, but his mom didn't like that idea, so she made him a deal. If he bought the car, he would have to pay rent and storage for his other cars, or he could buy property and stay home rent-free as long as he wanted. So at 18, we started looking at property, and he bought 10 acres for $5,000. We intended to build there at some point or sell it later on. In the early years, we would have massive ragers. There was no one around to bother, and it was great. Eventually, people bought and built on the lots around us, and zoning laws changed to allow one house per acre, so there were several houses, but it was still rural, and a few of us had large empty acreage the kids would use to ride their dirt bikes. We didn't care, let them have fun. About 15 years ago, another new house went in, and it was right on the property line. They hadn't even finished construction on the house when the wife began calling to demand I take some trees down because they blocked her view. The funny thing was, the view they blocked was from the RV they were living in. Once they moved into the house, they wouldn't even be near those trees, so I said sorry, but no, I'm not cutting the trees. She wasn't happy, and over the next couple years, she called to complain about all sorts of stupid shit and the noise of the kids on dirt bikes. Hell, she even got mad at people riding their horses because they made her dogs bark. One spring day, I drive out there and noticed the stream that ran across my property, and theirs had been dammed on my and diverted on my land about 50 yards from their property line, which sent it along the dirt road that went down a hill and up the other side, creating a pond where it was blocked, and another at the bottom of the road, and preventing me from accessing the majority of the property. Now, I knew it was their doing, because the previous fall-winter, she had called to complain my stream was causing her property to flood. First off, it wasn't my stream, and her property didn't flood. In wetter months, the stream naturally got larger. It flowed downhill, and it kept to its banks for decades. Their lot was originally heavily wooded, and they had cleared all of the trees, and I could tell they had done a bunch of grading. So, if they had water issues, that's their doing, not mine. Anyway, I went home, and the following weekend we grabbed the small backhoe and a couple friends to unblock the stream. We hadn't even unloaded it before we heard her screaming and the cops showed up. They were unsure if they should stop us because our state is pretty environmentally conscious, and there are strict wetland laws. The cops didn't know if we were rerouting the stream, or if they had. I completely understand where they are coming from, and I knew this could happen, so not only did I bring pictures to show how the stream had been, but one of our friends was an official at the DOE. He was able to explain the law and that we legally needed to put the stream back. We couldn't do much about the pond, except wait for it to dry out, but we sent the stream back down its original channel. Of course, when it go to their freshly graded land, it had no channel to follow, and yeah, it did flood their yard. Unfortunately for them, there happened to be that DO official who felt it was his duty to issue them a citation for divering and illegally altering the stream. They ended up having to put the stream bed back and revegetate with native plants and shrubs in a 25-foot buffer zone, which took away a portion of their yard, pay us damages, and got a huge fine. As the spring and summer progress, the kids on dirt bikes discover the pond. By this time, it's 18 inches deep, and they are loving riding through it. So instead of just riding there, they spend hours in that area, much to the annoyance of the neighbor. She calls the police multiple times, but the kids would either be gone or say they have permission to be there, so the police call us and we say, "Yup, let them ride." Now we did have concerns about liability if they got hurt, but we liked pissing her off, so we took the risk. Not the best idea, and thank God no one ever did that we knew about. A couple years go by. She has learned to text because we ignored her calls when she has something to complain about. I make my annual spring visit and notice there are 23 large cedar and fir trees cut down. 5 have been cut up, and a path leads directly to their very full woodshed. I was pissed. This isn't something I can just fix, and you don't fuck with my trees. I called the police, and their excuse was that firewood was their sole source of heat, and they needed the wood. They cut so many, so it would dry out over the next couple years. They get another no trespassing order. The stream one had expired, and charged with theft and vandalism. It took a couple years, but they ended up having paid $10,000 for each tree they cut down, so that was nice. Plus we sold 15 of the trees and made another $45,000. They were pissed to say the least. Life goes on, and we still got texts every time she heard a dirt bike, horse goes by, or whatever irritated her on any given day. We started having summer campout parties over the next few years, and she always called the police or fire department. Of course, we never got cited because we are not stupid and didn't break any laws. Sadly, my husband died suddenly, and eventually I decided it was time to sell because I wasn't going to build a house there, so I listed the property for $1 million, which was the market rate at the time. Remember, it was 10 acres, and you can build one house per acre. Of course, anytime people went out there, she would flag them down and tell them it flooded and all sorts of nonsense. She didn't want anyone to build or be there. I should have renewed the second trespass order, but it expired right around the time my husband passed, and it just wasn't important at that moment. Developers were not bothered, and we did get a few offers under ask I was happy with, but I really wanted to sell it to an individual who wanted to build a single home, just being stupid and sentimental. My agent wasn't happy, but understood LOL. One day he calls me with an offer that is much less than any of the others, and they wanted to do an owner-carried contract for 3 years with a balloon payment to pay me off at the end of the 3 years. It's a couple who wanted to meet me out there. I didn't have anything going on the upcoming Saturday, so I said I would meet them with the understanding that I really wasn't interested in carrying the contract, and the price was too low. We figured they were hoping to change my mind. AMD, we were hoping they would come in with a better offer LOL. They got there before me, and when I arrived, the bitch is there telling them how bad the property is. I parked on the main road and was walking in, so none of them even knew I was there. As I approached, 2 little kids come flying up on dirt bikes. She comes unglued, grabbed a rock and threw at them. Came nowhere close to hitting them. The guy immediately starts yelling at her and tells her get the fuck out of there. It scares her, and she left. He sees me and begins to apologize, but I stopped that and thanked him. We start talking, and he explained part of the reason they wanted this specific property was because they had 2 young boys who rode motocross, and he loved the trails, plus he wanted to build a track for them. When he showed me where I knew he was my buyer, I took a $250,000 loss on the sale and carried that contract just to spite that bitch. While that is a huge sum, remember we paid $5K for it and got almost $300,000 for the trees, and another $20,000 for the nonsense. With the Stream Plus, enjoyed the property for almost 30 years, and I got the interest on the contract and the balloon payment, so it wasn't like we really lost out. Plus knowing the bitch was going to be miserable for years to come. You just can't put a price on that. I sold it 6 years ago, and I still go out a couple times a year just to check it out. They have built a beautiful house at the farthest point from the bitch, and there is a huge track up by her place. She still sends me nasty texts, and I should probably block her, but it makes me smile each time, knowing she is still pissed. Well worth the loss, and I know my late husband would approve. He always knew I was a petty bitch.